All right, when we last left off, George and Julia had just figured out what Ivan had made and they had placed it onto the billboard. And Mac was just arriving to work. Mad humans. A mad gorilla is loud, but a mad human can be loud too, especially when he is throwing chairs and turning over tables and breaking the cotton candy machine. Phone call. Mac is kicking a trash can across the food court when the phone rings. He answers it red-faced and sweating. What the? He demands. He glares at me. I don't know what you're, he starts to say, but then he stops to listen. Who? Julia, who? He asks. Oh, sure, George's kid? She's the one that called you? More talking. With the phone to his ear, Matt comes close to my cage, eyeing me suspiciously. Yeah, he says. He paints. Sure. We've been selling his art for quite a while now. There's another long pause. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was my idea. Mac nods. A smile starts at the corner of his mouth. Photos? No problem. You want to see him in action? Come on down, have a look. We're open 365 days a year. Can't miss us. We're right off of I-95. Mac picks up on the overturned trash can. Yeah, I think he'll be adding more pictures. It's what do you call it? A work in progress. When the call is done, Mac shakes his head. Impossible, he says. An hour later, a man with a camera comes to take my picture. He is from the local paper, the one that Julia called. How about you take one of me with the elephant, Max suggests. He drapes his arms around Ruby's back, grinning as the camera clicks. Perfect, the man says. Perfect, Mac agrees. A star again. A photo of my billboard is in the newspaper, and Mac tapes the story onto my window. Each day, more curious people arrive. They park in front of the billboard. They point and shake their heads. They take photos. Then they come into the mall and they buy paintings. While visitors watch, I dip my hands in fresh buckets of paint. I make pictures for the gift shop and pictures to add to the billboard. Trees with birds, a newborn elephant with glittering black eyes, a squirrel, a bluebird, a worm. I even paint Bob so he can be on the billboard too. I can tell he likes the picture, although he says I didn't quite capture his distinguished nose. Every afternoon, Mac and George add my new pictures to the billboard. People slow their cars while they walk. Drivers honk and wave. My gift shop pictures now host $65 with the frame. The ape artist. I have new names. People call me the ape artist, the primate Picasso. I have visitors from morning till night, and so does Ruby, but nothing's changed for her. Every day at 2 and 4 and 7, Ruby plods through the sawdust with Snickers on her back. Every night she has bad dreams. Bob, I say, after I've soothed Ruby to sleep with a story, my idea isn't working. Bob opens one eye. Be patient. I'm tired of being patient, I say. Interview. This evening, a man and a woman came to interview Mac and also George and Julia. The man has a large, heavy camera perched on his shoulder. He films me as I make pictures. He films Ruby in her cage, with her foot roped to the bolt in the floor. Mind if I take a look? He asks. Mac waves a hand. Be my guest. While Mac and the woman talk, the cameraman walks through the mall. He pans his camera to the right, to the left, up and down. When his eyes fall on the claw stick, he stops. He trains his camera on the gleaming blade. Then he moves on. The early news. Mac turns on the TV. We are on the early news at 5 o'clock. Bob says, don't let it go to my head. They were there. We all are: Mac, Ruby, me, George, and Julia. The billboard, the mall, the ring, and the claw stick. Signs on sticks. In the morning, several people gather in the parking lot. They're carrying signs on sticks. Their signs have words and pictures on them. One has a drawing of a gorilla cradling a baby elephant. I wish I could read. Protesters. Many people with signs come today. They want Ruby to be free. Some of them even want Mac to shut down the mall. In the evening, George and Mac talk about them. Max says they're protesting the wrong guy. He says they're going to ruin everything. He says thanks for nothing, George. Max stomps off. George, holding his mop, watches him leave. He rubs his eyes. He looks worried. Dad, Julia says, looking up from her homework, you know what my favorite sign was? George asked. Which one? The one that said, elephants are people too. George gives her a tired smile. He goes back to work. His mop moves across the empty food court like a giant brush, painting a picture that nobody will ever see. Check marks. A tall man with a clipboard and a pencil comes to visit. He says he is here to inspect the property. He doesn't say much more, but he makes many check marks on his paper. He looks at the floor. Check. He examines Ruby's hay. Check. He eyes our watering bowls. Check. Mac watches him scowling. Bob is outside hiding near the dumpster. He does not want to be a check mark. Free Ruby. Every day there are more protesters and cameras with bright lights. Sometimes the people carrying signs shout out, Free Ruby, Free Ruby. Ivan, Ruby asks, why are those people yelling my name? Are they mad at me? They're mad, I say, but not at you. A week later, the inspecting man comes back with a friend, a woman, with smart, dark eyes like my mother's. She had a white coat on, and she smells like lobelia blossoms. Her hair is thick and brown, the color of a rotten branch teeming with luscious ants. She watches me for a long time, then she watches Ruby. She talks to the man. They both talk to Mac. The man gives Mac a sheet of paper. Mac covers his face. He goes in his office and he slams the door. New box. Something strange is happening. The white-coated woman is back with other humans. They place a large box in the center of the ring. It's Ruby-sized. And suddenly I know why the woman is here. She is here to take Ruby away. Training. The woman leads Ruby into the box. She places an apple inside. Good girl, Ruby, she says kindly. Don't be afraid. Ruby inspects the box with her trunk. The woman makes a clicking sound with a little piece of metal she is holding in her hand. She gives Ruby a piece of carrot. Each time Ruby touches the box, she gets a click and a treat. Why is she making that clicking noise? I asked Bob. They do that to dogs all the time, Bob said. I can tell that he doesn't approve. It's called a clicker training. They want Ruby to associate the noise with the treat. When she does something they want, they make the noise. Great job, Ruby, the woman says. You're a quick study. After many clicks and carrots, she takes Ruby back to her cage. Why is that lady giving me carrots when I touch the box? Ruby asks me. I think she wants you to go inside, I explain. But there's nothing inside except an apple. Inside that box, I say, is the way out. Ruby tilts her head. I don't get it. See the picture of the red giraffe on the box? I think the lady is from the zoo, Ruby. I think she's getting ready to take you out of here. I wait for Ruby to trumpet with joy, but instead she stares at the box in silence. I'm not sure you understand. The box might be taking you to a place where there are other elephants, I say. A place with more room, that with humans that care about you. But even as I say these words, I remember with a shudder the last box that I was in. I don't want a zoo, Ruby says. I want you and Bob and Julia. This is my home. No, Ruby, I say. This is your prison. Poking and prodding. The lady comes in, and she brings an animal doctor with an awful smell and a dangerous-looking bag. He spends an hour with Ruby poking and prodding. He looks at her eyes, her feet, her trunk. When he's done with Ruby, he enters my cage. I wish I could have hid under Not Tag like Bob. Instead, I do a nice, loud chest beat, and after a moment, the doctor retreats. We're going to need to put this one under, he says. I'm not quite sure what he means, but I strut around my cage feeling victorious anyway. No painting. No one asks me to paint today. No one asks Ruby to perform. There are no shows, no visitors, unless you count the protesters. Max stays in his office all day long. More boxes. I wake up from a long morning nap. Bob is on my belly, but he isn't asleep. He's watching the ring where 4 men are placing a large metal box. It's me-sized. What is that? I ask, still blurry from the sleep. Bob nuzzles my chin. I believe that box is for you, my friend. I'm not sure what he means. Me. They brought in a bunch of boxes while you were sleeping. Looks to me like they're taking the whole lot of you, he says, casually licking his paw. Even Thelma. Taking, I repeat. Taking us where? Well, some to the new zoo, probably. Others to an animal shelter where people will try to find homes. Bob shakes himself. So I guess all good things must come to an end, huh? His voice is bright, but his eyes are far away and sad. I'm gonna miss your stomach, big guy. Bob shuts his eyes. He makes an odd noise in his throat. But what about you? I ask. I can't tell if Bob's just pretending to sleep, but he doesn't answer. I gaze at the huge, shadowy box, and suddenly I understand how Ruby feels. I don't want to go in that box. The last time I was in that box, my sister died. So, what do you think is going to happen to Ivan? Is he going to go to the zoo with Ruby? And what do you think are going to happen to the other animals? And do you think that Ivan has accomplished his mission and kept his promise to Stella to protect Ruby?